Good morning and welcome to our live coverage of Starlink 9-17 mission from the West Coast, that is from the Pad Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. We hope you all are doing fine and excited about the upcoming Starlink launch. We are super excited bringing you the live coverage of SpaceX 94th overall launch and the 91st Falcon 9 launch of this year. Hello everyone, I am Dipta Maitra and I will be the commentator for today's exciting mission launch. Before we dive into the mission details, I want to take a moment to express our deepest gratitude to each of you for joining us today. On behalf of entire AstroYonder's team and moderators, a big thanks to our incredible YouTube community for being here as we bring you comprehensive coverage of space launches packed with detailed stats and in-depth insights. Your presence means the world to us and we truly appreciate your support. We are waiting for a Falcon 9 liftoff at 9:50 a.m. Eastern Time from Vandenberg Space Force Base for a southeasterly launch for SpaceX Starlink mission. The Starlink mission 9-17 will launch 20 Starlink satellites to low Earth orbit. Today's Starlink mission marks SpaceX's amazing 386th overall launch, with the 374th Falcon 9 launch to date. This is the 63rd dedicated Starlink mission of the year for SpaceX. Prior to today's launch, SpaceX has launched 1,372 Starlink satellites so far, over 62 flights this year, and overall 7,022 Starlink satellites with dedicated 207 direct-to-cell satellites to date. SpaceX is currently targeting a liftoff time of Falcon 9 from Vandenberg at 9:50 a.m. Eastern Time, 6:50 a.m. Pacific Time, which will be 1:50 p.m. UTC on Friday, that is on September 20th. Now let's just quickly dive into the payload details for Starlink 9-17 mission. This launch marks the 63rd dedicated Starlink launch for this year. Starlink satellites are built at SpaceX Satellite Development Facility based in Redmond, Washington. A quick fun fact and the answer to the question asked in the poll. At the inception, the two identical Starlink satellites called Microsat 2A and Microsat 2B were launched on 22nd February 2018. Upon orbital deployment, they were renamed to Tintin A and Tintin B. So Tintin A and Tintin B are the first Starlink satellites to be launched. Today's launch consists of 20 version Mini 2 satellites, which includes 13 dedicated satellites with direct-to-cell capabilities. Each Starlink satellite is equipped with powerful 5 advanced Ku band phase array antennas and 3 dual band parabolic antennas utilizing Ka and E band to provide increased capacity. Starlink satellites uses these antennas, which altogether utilizes Ku, Ka and E band frequencies, allowing Starlink to provide high bandwidth connectivity, that is 4 times more capacity per satellite than earlier versions. Each satellite features a dual solar array with a size of 52.5 square meters, which unfolds to a wingspan of 100 feet. The two solar arrays are also aeroneutral, which enable faster on-orbit maneuvers. Also, the satellite contains a high-capacity battery to provide power to the payloads. Each Starlink satellite contains 3 space laser transponders, also known as optical inter-satellite links, which recently Polaris Dawn crew tested them. So these optical inter-satellite links are used for intercommunications between Starlink satellites, which operates at up to 200 Gbps, which together across the constellation form a global internet mesh that can connect customers anywhere in the world. This also enables the spacecraft to transmit data without local ground stations, providing truly global coverage. Each Starlink version 2 mini satellite weighs nearly 800 kilograms, that is 1,763 pounds. Starlink satellites are equipped with efficient ion Hall effect thrusters powered by argon, which enable Starlink satellites to orbit raise, maneuver in space, and deorbit at the end of their useful life. Today's payload will be placed in an orbit with an altitude of 296 kilometers and with an inclination of 53.16 degrees. Starlink uses custom-built navigation sensors named Star Tracker that surveys the stars to determine each satellite's location, altitude, and orientation for best possible broadband throughput. Each Starlink satellite contains 4 reaction wheels which provide agile attitude control for the vehicle. The hot spare configuration ensures high reliability operation, and its aluminum flywheel is fully demisable at the end of life. Worth mentioning, Starlink satellites are equipped with an onboard autonomous collision avoidance system as well for avoiding collisions with other spacecraft, space junks, and with other Starlink satellites as well autonomously, which utilizes the US Department of Defense debris tracking database. Now today's payload consists of direct-to-cell capabilities. So speaking of SpaceX direct-to-cell satellite, direct-to-cell is a technology developed by Starlink team. In easy words, it's like having cell phone towers in space. This technology allows your cell phone to connect directly to the satellites. Imagine we are in a remote area where there is no cell tower nearby. Normally we would not get any signal on our phone, but with direct to cell, our phones can get a signal directly from a Starlink satellites overhead. You don't need to make any changes to your existing LTE phone. It is designed to work with common LTE standards with absolute no changes to hardware, firmware, or special apps required. Whether you are on land, lakes, coastal waters, or even in the air, as long as you can see the sky, you can get a signal. It provides connectivity in remote regions as it aims zero dead zones around the world, giving you peace of mind when you need it the most. Now let's take a look at the flight record for the booster supporting today's Starlink 9-17 mission. The booster with tail number 1075 supporting today's mission is quite a teenage booster, you can say, with 12 previous flights in its record, including missions like SDA-0A mission for Space Development Agency, short for SDA, a United States Space Force Direct Reporting Unit. Next, it supported Sarah 2 mission for German Armed Forces. And recently, the Transporter 11 mission, a SpaceX rideshare mission which launched 116 satellites. And additionally, this booster supported 9 Starlink missions. Now awaiting its 13th flight, just minutes away. The last mission supported by today's booster was Transporter 11 on August 16th of this year. It's now 35 days since last used. Interestingly, today's mission will be the 13th consecutive launch of this booster from Pad Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg, with 9 landings on, of course, I Still Love You, and 3 on Landing Zone 4. Also a point worth mentioning, with today's Starlink 7, with Starlink 7-16 mission, it launched 22 Starlink satellites, which included 2 classified payloads as well, identified as USA 350 and USA 351 by the US government. It is believed that these 2 satellites are based off the company's Starshield satellite bus derived from Starlink satellite bus. Now a request for you guys, hitting the like button helps YouTube's algorithm catch the drift and bring more space lovers and rocket chasers our way, helping us to build a community with amazing space enthusiasts like you. And also consider subscribing to us. We'd be totally amazed to have you on board. Your support means the world to us, which inspires us to work more hard to provide live coverages filled with stats and thorough insights. Now let's take a look at the bar graph presenting number of Falcon 9 launches each year. Before today's launch, SpaceX completed 90 successful launches of Falcon 9 so far this year, with the recent Galileo L13 mission launch on September 17th. That launch marked the 21st launch since the Starlink 9-3 mission failure. And with that Galileo L13 mission launch, SpaceX made it to have 29 more than the launches made in 2022. Now with today's launch of Starlink Group 9-17 mission, the bar graph shows 91 Falcon 9 launches so far this year, which is 30 more than the launches made in 2022. They have already done more than half as many launches as they did all of last year, and it's only been 8 months and 20 days of this year. Just 5 more launches and SpaceX will be reaching the same number of launches made in last year, as SpaceX stays on course to achieve their ambitious target of 140 to 148 launches by this year's end. And here is a catch. If we count the failed Starlink 1-3 mission, SpaceX will have 92 launches this year, including today's mission, which is just 4 less than the number of launches made last year. Although SpaceX is not counting that failed Starlink 9-3 mission, so we are sticking with that as well. and we are counting today's launch as the 91st launch. Also, today's launch marks the 22nd launch since the Starlink 9-3 mission failure. Now let's go ahead as we progress through the countdown and review the milestones that lie ahead for us on this Vandenberg flight. T-minus 38 minutes countdown begins at this point when SpaceX launch director gives the go for the start of propellant load. If everything looks fine, prop load begins at T-minus 30 minutes mark with the loading of the rocket grade kerosene on the RP-1 on board the first and second stages of the Falcon 9 rocket. We are nearly 1 minute away from the SpaceX director giving the go for the start of the propellant load. Right now we are just 39 minutes away from the liftoff from this event to happen. So at that same time, LOX load, that is super chill liquid oxygen, is loaded on board the first stage. And then at T-minus 16 minutes, which will be the next event that we are looking for here, that's when the second stage liquid oxygen load begins. At T-minus 7 minutes, that's when the chill down of 9 Merlin engines gets underway. It involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbopumps, which helps protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damages during the startup sequence. At about 6 minutes before liftoff, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. In a T-minus 4.5 minute, the strong back retract sequence begins. The process begins with the clamp pumps underneath the payload fairing opening up, followed by the transporter erector or the strong back reclining about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9. It remains in that position until liftoff, at which point it rapidly pulls back to clear the way for the Falcon 9 rocket's vertical ascent. Just for a quick knowledge, you might be knowing that the strong back reclining process at Vandenberg differs from that at Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center. Here at Vandenberg, we recline the strong back 13 degrees, whereas at Cape and Kennedy Space Center, we recline the strong back about 1.5 degrees away from the Falcon 9. The strong back positioned alongside the vehicle, also known as the transporter erector, fulfills multiple functions. It supplies propellants, provides air conditioning, pressurization gases, and electrical power. Additionally, it transports the Falcon 9 to the launch pad and positions it for the launch. Here is an image on your screen showing how a strong back or the transporter erector transports the rockets. Although on your screen you are watching Falcon Heavy being transported, but the process is very similar for the Falcon 9. So coming back to the countdown, now at T-minus 3 minutes mark, the first stage liquid oxygen loading should be complete, followed by the second stage liquid oxygen loading wrapping up at T-minus 2 minutes mark. At that point, Falcon 9 rocket is fully fueled with 1 million pounds of propellant. At T-minus 1 minute mark, the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. In the final 60 seconds of the countdown, the control of the flight system, that is the launch sequence, is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. If everything looks good, at T-45 seconds mark, the SpaceX launch director will give the final go for the Falcon 9 liftoff. Now at T-3 seconds, the engine ignition sequence start command being issued by the onboard engine controller. Finally, at T0 we will have liftoff. If all 9 Merlin 1D engines ignite and are healthy, flight computers will give the command for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9. Would like to welcome Marcos Antonio here on our stream. Hope you will be enjoying the stream, Marcos, and once again thanks for tuning in. So SpaceX is currently targeting a liftoff time of Falcon 9 from Vandenberg at 9:50 a.m. Eastern Time, 6:50 a.m. Pacific Time, which will be 1:50 p.m. UTC on Friday, that is on September 20th. Now let's go ahead and briefly step through the trajectory for today's Starlink 9-17 mission. Falcon 9 leaving the pad Space Launch Complex 4 East from Vandenberg Space Force Base with a batch of 20 Starlink satellites on board, including 13 with direct-to-cell satellites, for a southeast trajectory along the coast of Southern California, heading into a low Earth orbit. That is to the 9th shell of the second generation Starlink mega constellation, indicated by that green line on your screen. The red line you see where Falcon 9 first stage will land after stage separation, just a little later, leaving California's coast. This will be a drone ship landing using the autonomous spaceport drone ship named, of course, I Still Love You, located here on the west coast. Meaning that the first stage booster with tail number 1075 flying for its 13th time will be returning, heading out to the drone ship for its landing. This will be the 103rd landing on, of course, I Still Love You drone ship to date. Planned booster recovery is approximately 627 kilometers, with estimated fairing recovery approximately 703 kilometers downrange. And the stage 2 debris re-entry will be in East Pacific on the second orbit. We expect the addition of a fourth drone ship likely by the end of this year or early next year. But as of now, we know that there are 3 in SpaceX drone ship fleet. One of the 3 drone ships just read the instructions, and a shortfall of Gravitas are stationed in Florida, while of course I Still Love You is stationed in California. Speaking of the fairing recovery, SpaceX will utilize the recovery vessel Go Beyond here at the Pacific to retrieve the 2 halves of the payload fairings from the Pacific waters. The 2 halves of the payload fairing will be recovered slightly farther downrange, that is approximately 76 kilometers downrange from where the first stage lands on the, of course, I Still Love You drone ship, after they will smoothly splash down with the guidance of parachutes. You can see on your screen how a fairing recovery looks like. Although on your screen it's Doug performing the fairing recovery operations, but today's supporting recovery vessel here at the Pacific, as mentioned before, is Go Beyond. Other recovery vessel Bob, Doug and Go Cosmos at the East Coast is currently awaiting its next assignment. Now here is a short video of the fairing half that protected shell from rocket's payload, making its way back home, piercing through Earth's atmosphere, creating this coolest part of this video, that is this mesmerizing halo around it. Now let's go through the launch timeline for the Falcon 9 rocket passing these events following liftoff. At T plus 1 minute and 9 seconds, Falcon 9 will pass through max Q, a point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Then couple of different events coming up in rapid succession. First will be at T plus 2 minutes and 29 seconds, where first stage main engine cutoff will occur, that is MECO, followed by a major milestone within 3 seconds at T plus 2 minutes and 32 seconds, where first and second stage will separate from each other. Just after 7 seconds later, second stage MVAC engine will ignite for the first time during today's flight. This event is also known as SES-1 at T plus 2 minutes and 39 seconds. Coming up next at T plus 3 minutes and 8 seconds mark, Falcon 9's payload fairings will be jettisoned, exposing the payload to the vacuum of space. At T plus 6 minutes and 1 second, the first stage entry burn will begin, lasting for 23 seconds up to 6 minutes and 24 seconds mark, ending the entry burn for the Falcon 9's first stage. At this time around, we will hear the callouts for stage 1 FTS, that is the flight termination systems, being saved. A quick fun fact: the stage 1 FTS is saved, or one can say flight termination systems are turned off or disabled after the re-entry burn, whereas the stage 2 FTS is saved after the orbital insertion burn. We will hear the callouts for stage 1 being transonic and stage 2 being in terminal guidance. Next major milestones at T plus 7 minutes and 52 seconds, the first stage landing burn will commence, followed by the landing legs being deployed, which will orient and set up the first stage for SpaceX iconic precision landing. At T plus 8 minutes and 18 seconds, the first stage will land on the drone ship Of Course I Still Love You for its 103rd time overall for this drone ship, marking SpaceX's remarkable 350th overall booster landing to date. This number speaks a huge milestone for SpaceX. Now the second stage MVAC engine will shut down, that is SECO 1, for the first time in today's flight and enter into a parking orbit at t plus 8 minutes and 47 seconds. T plus 53 minutes and 42 seconds. The second stage MVAC engine will reignite for a quick 1 second burn, a event named SES2, and turning it off at T plus 53 minutes and 43 seconds, that is SECO2, which will set up the batch of 20 Starlink satellites deployment at approximately T plus 1 hour. Now before proceeding, please give us a few moments to check if the launch is proceeding as scheduled or not, and to keep ourselves informed. Yes, so far it seems like SpaceX is sticking with their mentioned liftoff time. Although today I think we will be having a short launch window. Yes, nearly we are having 14 to 15 minutes of launch window today for the launch of Starlink Group 9-17 mission, as the liftoff is targeted at 6:50 a.m. Pacific time, with backup opportunities available until 7:04 a.m. Pacific time. So it's just a very short launch window we are having. Hopefully SpaceX can make it through. Now let's just have a look at some stats related to today's mission launch. Today's launch marks 386th SpaceX's overall launch and the 63rd dedicated launch of Starlink satellites for this year. This marks 374th Falcon 9 launch to date, 13th flight for this particular Falcon 9 booster supporting today's mission, with tail number 1075. 91st Falcon 9 launch of 2024 so far. Without counting one failed Starlink mission here, and this launch marks SpaceX's 94th overall launch of this year, including the third and fourth integrated flight test of the Starship and one Falcon Heavy launch. As of the current circumstances going on between the SpaceX and FAA, it is rumored that the fifth integrated flight test will be in November, which was previously expected at the early of the August this year, but now things are getting really worse between SpaceX and FAA. So hopefully they will sort this out. And recently we saw that for the flight 6, SpaceX conducted a static fire test for the ship 31, and also Elon tweeted that the flight 6 of the Starship will be finalized and will be in a ready state before even the FAA will be approving for the flight 5th. So things are really getting worse there. Anyways, let's have a look here on the stats. So with that launch of today's, SpaceX will have the 319th Falcon booster reflight to date, meaning the launch of a booster that has flown at least once before. 91st orbital launch for SpaceX, launching from Space Launch Complex 4 East. This will be 158th orbital launch from this pad. Please excuse me for that awkward voice. And with this mission success, SpaceX will have a remarkable 7,042 Starlink satellites launched to date. Now moving on to some reusability statistics. This launch marks 305th Falcon 9 booster reflight to date. This will be the 103rd landing on Of Course I Still Love You droneship, 13th landing of the first stage booster with tail number 1075. And with this mission's first stage landing, it paves the way for the 275th overall droneship landing, marking 331st Falcon 9 landing and a commendable 350th overall landing to date. Speaking of droneship landing, let's look into the stats for droneship landing prior to today's launch. A shortfall of Gravitas, having one unsuccessful landing attempt so far and 80 successful landings out of 81 overall attempts with the recent Starlink 8-6 mission. Previously, with Starlink 8-6 mission, a shortfall of Gravitas witnessed its first landing failure as the booster with tail number 1062 on its record-breaking 23rd flight couldn't make it to have a successful landing. In comparison, Just Read the Instructions has encountered 3 unsuccessful landings with 92 successful landings out of 95 overall landing attempts with the recent Galileo L13 mission. While Of Course I Still Love You has experienced 7 unsuccessful landings and 102 successful landings out of 109 overall attempts with the previous Starlink 9-6 mission. Please note that only these droneship landing stats which I mentioned here now are excluding today's mission. These are prior to today's launch. Here are some key stats for SpaceX launches in this year, including today's mission. With today's mission launch, SpaceX have a total of 94 launches this year, and out of those 63 are non-Starlink missions, including one from today. 29 non-Starlink missions for commercial and government organizations, and 2 Starship launches. One of the previous non-Starlink missions, the GOES-U mission, was supported by the 10th Falcon Heavy launch. SpaceX SpaceX reused booster for 88 times in those mission launches, including today's mission, showing their commitment to sustainability and reusability. Now, if we look into the geographical distribution, we get they have 61 launches from East Coast in Florida, with 17 from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center, and 44 launches from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. On the West Coast, they will be having 31 launches, including today's one, all from Space Launch Complex 4 East here at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. And there were 2 launches from Gulf Coast of Starbase back in Texas for the Starship 3rd and 4th integrated flight test. As for landings, they will be nailing it today 91 times this year. Most of the landings are on drone ships with 72 successful landings, 26 on Of Course I Still Love You, including one from today, 21 on Just Read the Instructions, and 25 on A Shortfall of Gravitas. And for ground landings, they have pulled off 19 of them, 12 times on Landing Zone 1, previously with the Bluebird 1-5 mission, 2 times on Landing Zone 2, and 5 times on Landing Zone 4 with the recent Transporter 11 mission. Prior to today's launch, the success rate for the ground landings is 98.68%, with 75 successful landings. For drone ship landing, it is 96.14%, with 274 successful landings. And the overall landing success rate is 96.68%, with a total of 348 successful landings. The landing success rate of this year reduced from 100% to 98.89% due to the failure of the booster with tail number 1062 to land on a shortfall of Gravitas drone ship during last Starlink 8-6 mission. The longest stretch of successful missions in a row prior to the last mission failure, that is the Starlink 9-3 mission, is 334 back-to-back successful missions, that is from Iridium 1 to Turksat 6A mission. Today's mission is the 22nd launch since last mission failure. Most launches in a calendar quarter to date is 36 launches, which is in the second quarter of this year, and most launches in a calendar month is 13 launches in May, again in this year only, that is in 2024. If you are feeling we are adding value to your viewing experience, please consider giving this video a like, which really helps YouTube's algorithm to bring in more space fans like you and provide opportunity to the people to find out this stream. Also consider subscribing to us as we strive hard to bring streams filled with stats and details. We would be super grateful for your support. Right now, we are just 3 minutes away from the webcast to begin, and also we are nearing to the end of the stats we are discussing here. On your screen, you are having a pie chart showing this year's orbital launches, including today's one. You can see United States having a big share of the pie with 107 orbital launches, launch comprising a substantial 61.8% of the global total. Also, this includes Rocket Lab's Electron launches, as Rocket Lab is an US-based company. China having 43 launches, accounting for 24.9%. Russia with 11 launches, making 6.4% of the pie. Japan 4 launches, having a share of 2.3%. Meanwhile, India and Iran entered the fray with 3 launches each, both having 1.7% of the pie. Europe also have their share of the pie, having 1.2% with 2 launches so far. As you can see, it's a tight competition, but United States and China are clearly leading the space race this year. Now here is another pie chart showing the 2024 orbital launches by rocket variations, which includes today's launch. Falcon 9 is having the highest launches, a true powerhouse and standout of this year with 91 launches, having a share of 52%, which is more than half of the total. Now we are just standing by for the webcast to begin. We are just only 1 minute away from that. So let's move on to the webcast. Adding value to your viewing experience is our top priority. If you feel we achieved that a little bit, please consider liking this video. It really helps YouTube's algorithm bring in more space fans and helps others to find out this stream. Also consider subscribing to our channel as we work hard to bring you streams filled with stats, details and insights. We would be incredibly grateful for your support. Right now we are waiting for the webcast to begin for the Starlink 9-17 mission.
Battery track.
As we heard the call out, now tanks are pressurizing for the strong battery track. Here we are adding a little bit of the gas to stiffen up the tanks so that the clamp arms can open with a solid structure holding the Falcon 9. Upon opening the arms, we start reclining the strong back about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9. T-minus 4 minutes and 22 seconds.
Strong back retract has started.
All systems are go for an on-time liftoff. We heard the call out. The process of the strong back retract has been started, and hope we can see the clamp arms around the stage 2 opening up. Although it's a little foggy weather there, but the clamp arms underneath the payload fairing will open up, and the strong back erector will recline 13 degrees away from the vehicle. Now we are less than 4 minutes away from liftoff. While watching the live view of Falcon 9, a couple of important steps were completed. The spacecraft team switched to internal power a few minutes ago, and fueling of the Falcon 9 first stage is finished, meaning all the RP-1 prop is now on board. We are still loading liquid oxygen on both first and second stages.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
And here is a call out. We had stage 1 LOX load, that is the liquid oxygen load, is complete. We are now waiting for the second stage that will finish up at just inside T-minus 2 minutes mark. Now currently we are at 2 minutes and 34 seconds from the liftoff. The range continues to be green, and the weather, of course, it's cooperating, and we don't expect any weather conditions to develop in the last couple of minutes. But again, if for some reason we do not have the launch today, we do have an backup opportunity tomorrow. Now we will be listening in a couple of seconds for the LOX load closeout on the second stage.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And here we go. All propellants are now on board the Falcon 9 with 1 million pounds of propellant. We are now beginning to vent down the pressure that was in the tubing on the strong back. Call out for the ground gas closeout. That's where we bleed the pressure off, and that cold gas, when it reacts with the moist humid air here at the Pacific, gives you that nice white cloud, which is an indicator of launch coming up. Next event, T-minus 1 minute, we should hear the call out that Falcon 9 flight computers are in startup and controlling the rocket for the remainder of the countdown.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Right on time, Falcon 9 flight computers on stage 1 and stage 2 are running the rocket through the last minute of countdown. Now let's listen to the go call out.
Go for launch.
Here we go. SpaceX launch director giving go for the launch. We are coming up on T-minus 30 seconds nearly. All system continues to remain go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Falcon 9 and Starlink.
T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
And we have a successful liftoff. Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. Stage 1 propulsion is nominal. We got a call out for that. T plus 30 seconds into the flight, Falcon 9 on its way with 20 Starlinks into the low Earth orbit. Right now we are throttling down the Merlin engines, preparing for the
nominal power and telemetry.
max Q. So good call outs there. Power and telemetry are nominal. We are throttling down the 9 Merlin engines right now, preparing for the period of maximum dynamic stress
Supersonic.
coming up. We got the call that the vehicle got supersonic. We have exceeded Mach 1 on the Falcon 9 right now. Falcon 9
Max
is
Q.
faster than the speed of sound. And we got the call out for Max Q as well. We are through the period of maximum stress on the vehicle. We have throttled the 9 Merlin engines back up to full power. Coming up, we will be hearing a call out for the MVAC engine chill.
MVAC chill.
Right on time. As you heard the call out, we have started the process of chill down of MVAC engine on second stage prior to its ignition, just after stage separation. Coming up, 3 events in rapid succession: the shutdown of main engine on first stage, that is main engine cutoff MECO, followed by stage separation and ignition of the second stage MVAC engine for the first time, that is SES-1, which will boost the payload into low Earth orbit. So let's hear the call out. We are getting amazing views there.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
We just got the callouts for all back-to-back milestones. Now the stage nitrogen thrusters will be beginning to reorient the first stage, and the 4 hypersonic titanium grid fins, as you can see on the left side of your screen, started to slowly begin deploying. Now we will have fairing separation coming up. We didn't got a call out although, but we saw on the right side of our screen that fairing separation.
Fairing separation confirmed.
There we go, we got the call out now. Fairing separation has successfully separated. You are looking right now a view of the first stage, which continues under the force of gravity and steering with the help of grid fins. It will continue to rise towards the apogee before descending back towards the landing on droneship. Of course, I Still Love You, stationed in the Pacific Ocean. Second stage, meanwhile, in the middle of its 6-minute burn, is on its way into the parking orbit with 20 Starlink satellites payload on board. Right now, we are getting amazing views from both the stages. As this is an early flight there, we can see how beautiful our Earth is looking with this dim lighting from sunlight. So far the launch has gone flawless. The first stage has completed its job and is making its way back. The second stage is performing at full capacity, and we are provided with stunning views from space from the second stage. We are now gearing up for the first stage landing on the drone ship. During this phase of the flight, stage 1 uses only its grid fins for steering as it re-enters to Earth. The grid fins helps orient the Falcon 9 during re-entry and guides its descent. While we are watching views from the second stage, you may occasionally see bursts of nitrogen gas on the left side of your screen from the first stage for altitude control. This burst helps position the vehicle as it heads back to the drone ship. Now coming up, we will be hearing a call out for stage 1 entry burn.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there we go. There's a confirmation. We just lit the Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. You can see now we are rapidly slowing down the vehicle as it enters Earth's atmosphere, and this burn should last just around 18 seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
The burn was lasted for 23 seconds, and we got the confirmation of the stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
Stage 1 FTS is safe.
We got the call out stage 1 FTS being saved. As mentioned before, it means stage 1 has accomplished its entry burn, and stage 2 FTS will be saved upon orbital insertion burn. As I was mentioning that we all know Falcon 9 first stage is equipped with 4 landing legs which are made out of carbon fiber with aluminum honeycomb. They are placed symmetrically around the base of the rocket,
Stage 1 transonic.
They will deploy just prior to the landing. We got a call out. Stage 1 is now transonic. Stage 1 is now traveling slower than the speed of sound as it heads towards landing. Speaking of landing, we are just about
Stage 2 FTS is safe.
60 seconds away from that. Stage 2 FTS has been saved, meaning orbital insertion
Stage
burn
1
is
landing
complete.
burn.
There we go. Great views of that landing burn
Stage
with
2 terminal
center
guidance.
E9 engines now lit. We are slowing down the vehicle very rapidly. Should be seeing those landing legs deploy any seconds
Stage
now.
1 landing leg deploy.
Landing legs deployed.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
There we have it. We have successfully made the landing of an orbital class Falcon 9 rocket. Coming up next, we will have the second stage engine cutoff, that is SECO 1, and following that event, we will enter into a coast phase as the vehicle ascends to its target orbit.
Airbag shutdown.
There we go, MBAC shutdown. Hopefully we'll be having a call out for nominal
orbit insertion.
And there we go, we had that call out for nominal orbit insertion. So these were the call outs we were waiting for: second stage engine cutoff, SECO 1, as well as the confirmation of good nominal orbit. And with that, we will wrap up our coverage for now. Be sure to check out our social media handle on X for the latest happening in space industry and updates on the upcoming launches. Hope you enjoyed the stream. We appreciate everyone joining us for today's launch. Wishing everyone a great week ahead. Thanks for watching. This is AstroYonder Live and me, Dipta, signing off for now, and we will see you next time.